Businesses need to address the COVID-19 crisis through all their interconnections. Their employees must be enabled to stay healthy and safe. That means keeping them informed, bringing them up to date, responding to their questions, and enabling them to become advocates for being strong and effective at this time. Secondly, businesses need to connect with their customers. Their customers will be themselves thinking through about how to respond to the crisis. And business is a trusted voice, especially when it teams up with public health expertise. So the combination of business and public health should be linking to customers and helping them to be responsible citizens at this time of great distress and uncertainty. Thirdly, businesses need to connect with their suppliers. Some of their suppliers will be facing real difficulty, and it's important to make certain that the business tunes into the supplier and makes sure that they in turn are enabled to be part of a chain of being much more effective in this time of COVID. And fourthly, businesses are needed for the present and for the future. If business is not functional, then the world doesn't work properly. So businesses need to pay attention to their own continuity and making certain that they can continue to function as best as possible in the midst of COVID. I'm seeing businesses in all sectors working with each other, working with government, working with communities to make a real difference. Let's take the food sector first. We're seeing already that as part of the containment efforts to reduce the impact of COVID and to suppress outbreaks, that their people are going hungry because their access to employment has suddenly been curtailed. So businesses are finding ways to meet with the people who are hungry, connect with them and make certain they've got access to cash or food. They're also focusing on the nutrition of children because children are not getting nutritious meals at school or in preschool centres, and businesses are helping with that. Businesses are noting that farmers are finding it hard to plant their fields, also to apply fertilizer and other treatments. So they're helping them get access to the essential inputs easily. And in addition, farmers are finding their markets are being disturbed, particularly if they've got perishable goods, and suddenly their income is reduced. So businesses are helping them with credit and helping them also with finding ways to link their produce to those who need it, perhaps short-circuiting markets. It's all about looking at the way in which systems are functioning and finding ways through the expertise available to business to short-circuit the systems for best benefit. One other example, businesses working in public health, in hospitality, and in transport are coming together. Those involved in public health are trying to make sure that people who need protective equipment and other essential requirements are able to get it. They're teaming up with those involved in logistics and transportation. And then we've got hoteliers saying, we'll provide accommodation for health workers so that they can keep safe and keep their families safe when they're working at hospital. And by the way, we're also hearing about hoteliers offering refuge for victims of domestic violence, where this is enhanced as a result of lockdown. Those are two examples of where I'm seeing partnerships between business and the health people and between business and people who are most at risk really coming to the fore. One thing we have to all remember is that this virus is not going to go away for the foreseeable future. It's going to continue to threaten societies, economies, and indeed the functioning of our world. That reality is not yet fully understood. We tend to talk about a post-COVID world, but it's going to be a world where we learn to live with the threat of COVID, at least until we've got a vaccine that is accessible to everybody and that actually protects us against the virus. So what does that mean? It means that, first of all, societies have to be ready to identify people with the disease, to isolate them, to find their contacts and isolate them as well, to stop disease from spreading and to interrupt transmission. We've also got to make sure that hospitals are functioning well with health workers that are properly equipped and looked after. Businesses can have a huge role in both of these because they can keep their employees informed about what every responsible citizen does in order to keep societies free of COVID and to defend in case the virus comes back. This puts huge responsibility on each individual, but employees can be ambassadors for good practice. and help to put that good practice in place in not only in their workplaces, but in their communities. And businesses can also enable citizens everywhere to understand what being responsible at the time of COVID means, whether it's about personal hygiene, cough etiquette, face coverings when these are encouraged by national authorities, as well as all the practices that have got to be adopted to interrupt transmission. Businesses can be ready just in case there is lockdown in their area in order to deal with a sudden upsurge of COVID cases. They can have continuity plans in place so that quickly they can move to alternative ways of working. Businesses can function in ways that minimize the chance of COVID being spread, especially if they involve close contact. For example, food companies with restaurants can actually find ways to serve their customers without having to have physical contact, by being at least 6 feet apart. And they can do that using imaginative means, both for managing customer flow, for serving customers and receiving cash. These kinds of examples are how businesses can contribute to what I call the COVID-ready state, the state we've all got to be in for the foreseeable future. In all aspects of both the current acute crisis associated with COVID and the longer-term COVID-ready state, there is a real need for businesses and the health sector to work closely together. Supporting the health sector with its vital job of detecting COVID cases early and helping them to isolate, but isolate with respect and honor rather than being stigmatized. Businesses can help those who are acting responsibility to be heroes rather than pariahs. Businesses can recognize the really important role of health workers in helping societies to stay strong. Not just the people, the doctors and nurses who are in direct contact, but the porters, the people who work in the canteens, the people who provide all the essentials in a hospital that enable us to have reasonable calm and peace as we work there. And then the essential workers to provide the support at community level. And in fact, people who provide food and who ensure that pharmacies stay open, they're also part of the public health response. I'd love it if businesses gave the same respect to these people as they give to members of the armed services and others who work for our defense. Health workers are just as important for society's defense now as members of the armed services might be, and in a war and in keeping us safe in the event of terrorism. I want to be very clear that this virus has to be seen as a common foe. It's not a friend, and unfortunately, the virus only presents itself in the body of somebody who's carrying it. We have to make sure that the person is protected, but the virus is suppressed. Businesses can be an absolutely essential part of reinforcing the public health response to this virus, respecting health workers, whoever they might be, respecting other essential workers, whoever they might be, who can keep us safe as we defend ourselves against future outbreaks.